basic income support system for its populace. The few jobs left are largely influenced by the new testing system title that has caused an excessively competitive atmosphere among the youth. With Aerok facing challenges like unemployment, lack of self-realization, and class polarization, let's see how the teams intend to resolve these problems using their proposed solutions. For today's debate, we have Team EAnomics and Missing Semester presenting their possible solutions along with policies, technology, and new innovative ideas. Your performance during the debate will be judged on the following criteria: during the proposal and the conclusion, comprehension and analysis, quality of solutions, and investigation and research. During the debate, use of argumentation, logic and persuasiveness, engagement, and attitude. I am personally excited to see how the teams have been working hard for their original ideologies, policies, and innovative ideas that resolve the current agenda. I wish all of the participants best of luck and may the best team win. So without further ado, I'd like to open the presentation session today, starting with Team EAnomics. You have 15 minutes to present your solution.
Right, thank you. Could we get a screen share? I think, Eugen, would you be able to sort that out?
Yeah, sure. You guys can screen share. Check again, please.
Okay. Is it working, Eugen?
Is it working?
Okay, let's try it one last time. Okay, good. Start.
Is the screen sharing?
So we have a presentation to help go along with visualize, but it's not coming up on the screen. Eugen, are you able to sort that out? Or
it's sharing for me, but I don't know why you guys.
Does everyone else see the screen share?
It's we'll just start.
Wait.
Okay.
The screen is currently sharing, but you guys should change your view.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. All right. I'll be starting now. Good morning, professors, MC, and everyone. My name is Elisa, my team member is Jasmine, and we are EAnomics. The current society of Aerok is stuck between a rock and a hard place. They face the ancient problem of how to best develop a good society with all its complexities of power, ethics, and class struggles, combined with the modern exponential complexities of a digitalized society. Both challenges are underlined not only by the need to remain internationally relevant knowledge-wise, but also the need to keep an economic foothold on the world stage. This is the tension between old and new world structures that Aerok, its civilians, and its world must manage in the transition. If we are to trace Aerok's development of governance and economy, the nation has historically shifted between monarchism before the 1930s to laissez-faire capitalism of strive to be useful, a reversion back to the 1930s, and finally a form of socialism with the implementation of basic income. However, technology adds that another complication. In order to maintain the technological lead Aerok has in the world, the economic benefits that AI brings seems to have become more prioritized than the fulfillment and well-being of humanity. The education system is built around advancing those who are more fit for a digital workforce, and thus furthers the inequality between those who do not pass the title test and the 5% of the population who do. Someone's usefulness was defined as someone who is employed and has thus led to the social class divide. Despite the comfort and the ease that automation brings, the advanced technology is no longer being used in a way that empowers most Aerok civilians. 95% of the population of workers have been made redundant by AI. Being employed brings social movement and privilege, and the effects on the majority of civilians are not considered. While the approaches of capitalism and socialism that were adopted in the past were necessary at the time and resulted in Aerok's impressive ability to flourish economically, these survival strategies have now become socially maladaptive. In a capitalistic society, an individual's value and worth is defined by what they can do and equated with what they can produce. With AI removing this purpose, Aerok is moving into an era where an individual is now defined by who they are and who they can be. However, just as importantly, the individual is defined by who they want to be, and society is not yet prepared to support this leap. The challenges Aerok faces are thus equally as existential as it is technological, and the society has been set up in a way of paradoxes: physiological needs against self-actualization, financial wealth yet spiritual poverty, speed against safety, and ultimately, humanity against technology. We decided to use a psychological framework to address Aerok's emergent dilemma of identity, specifically that of humanist psychology. If we map the issue to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we can see that while the physiological needs are being met through basic income, the needs of self-actualization and fulfillment are not. We have encapsulated this broad idea within 3 values of what we define as a good society within Aerok's context. 1, humanity must be empowered. The isolation of man has occurred through the prevention of holistic civilian participation due to the pursuit of usefulness in the 1950s. We can see this in the disparity between the elite working class and the rest of the population. To empower the people in Aerok, the fact that innovative technological ideas need to be complemented with a reform to the power imbalances in society must be considered. We must be interdisciplinary. It is only through a combination of disciplines with the multifaceted nature of humans be strengthened. By systematically embedding this through education during an individual's formative years, they will be more equipped with an array of skills that will best serve them for their future. Instead of the economic usefulness of the 1950s, we define useful as the capability and competence of an organism to respond to threats in a way that preserves survival and contributes to the growth of others. In this way, a strong nation is developed through strong citizens. However, interdisciplinary also includes the creation of strong intergenerational communities, such as families, teachers, and neighbors, who will uphold, honor, and preserve traditions and values. 3rd value, technology must be used for the benefit of society. Above all, technology will always be in service of high human needs. AI corporations and research must ensure an adequate assessment of risks. But this does not mean that the general public simply uses technology and are exempt from understanding the digital world that surrounds them. In fact, Aerok citizens must be actively engaged in knowing what kinds of tools they are using. By applying a psychological lens to a technological problem, we can pivot the focus from technology as the only solution and more towards technology as an aid to a human solution. The policies we propose address certain facets of each issue that Aerok faces, as well as links back to at least one of the values we support in our ideology. Education. The value underpinning education is the need to be interdisciplinary, not only in academics, but also in life. Education seems to be pointless if it continues to be defined in a way that is solely academic for the purpose of joining the 5% elite. Thus, we propose a new definition of education, which is to be an active, thoughtful citizen of society. We aim to practically implement this value through 1, the adjustment of title as an additional test of the 7, which utilizes psychologist Howard Gardner's theory of 7 intelligences. In this way, education is expanded so that it appeals to a student's natural mode of learning. Policy 2, proposing a schedule on which educators rotate within and between educational institutions so that classrooms have at least 2 facilitators. Policy 3, evolving the current methods of learning to one that is more experiential by placing classes directly in the field or through facilitated virtual reality sessions. An education including subjects such as foreign languages, programming, and leadership is extensive and well-rounded. However, if a student does not see the relevance it has to their daily life, education will continue to be stifled and siloed, simply another subject to be studied, especially if the future is uncertain. Our proposed version of education is more inclusive, experiential, and community-based, thereby opening more channels for evaluation and chances for students to redefine what it means to be successful in Aerok.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Alyssa. I will be sharing an overview of economic policies, starting with Policy 4, Blockchain Technology in Government Systems. This is aimed at infusing trust in the relationship between government and civilian, while laying a digital foundation for secure government services. This will be achieved through a decentralized but closed blockchain network for citizens of Aerok to access. This policy will become more clear when I go on to explain the innovative idea. The second policy, Policy 5, Structural Unemployment and the Problem Solver Initiative, is to re-educate and prepare the unemployed for rejoining the workforce, in addition to self-organizing, value-adding activities, which can be rewarded through digital tokens, which I will also elaborate on further in the Innovative Ideas section. Through community education centers and job centers, teaching will be interdisciplinary, plus encouraging a problem solver's mindset. Policy 6, the restructuring of universal basic income, is to reassess the government's current system of UBI and replace it with an adjusting basic income, freeing up government spending on those who maintain a certain income bracket while still supporting those who are unemployed or transitioning. These funds will be redistributed to finance other government policies. Policy 7, promoting human and interpersonal industries, addresses employment opportunities which are traditionally interpersonal, such as teaching, variations of therapy and rehabilitation, and healthcare. Corporations which have, which have made their workforce 100% labored by AI must meet a human labor quota. This policy will be reinforced with efforts to retrain human laborers, not only to reclaim the role of AI, but oversee the improvement within the given industry as problem solvers, leveraging the creative and empathetic faculties of humans. Policy 8, government spending on research benefiting the nation, also addresses the diversification of job and research opportunities by expanding Aerok's knowledge fields to that of the humanities. This will be achieved through the creation of the International Talent Institute of Humanities, drawing in foreign researchers and talent to kickstart humanities research within Aerok and enhancing diplomacy. Policy 9, the reduction of a standard work week, addresses mental health, job opportunities, and productivity of the labor force. Reducing working hours, depending on the industry, will redistribute those hours with those who are unemployed while hopefully maintaining salaries. This policy will follow a similar model to the 20-hour work week. Thank you.
These policies focus on the security and management of Aerok as a technologically driven society and speaks to the third value of our ideology: technology must benefit humanity. Due to the immense potential for good, yet also harm underlying such a nation, there must be a strong guard against agents who do not and will not align with the humanist values Aerok upholds. Policy 10. Private AI corporations must keep the code via regulatory government systems and submit security breach documentation, risk assessment, and reviews in order to reinforce the digital safety, transparency, and democracy of Aerok citizens. 11. Representative coalitions of employees within companies will be formed to disperse the power of bureaucratic management and internal hierarchy of AI companies. The coalition will work together with key executives to negotiate the needs of workers with the essential economic aims of the enterprise. Policy 12. Aerok citizens must sign the Digital Manifesto and Hephaestus' Oath to instill Aerok's core values within the fabric of the nation, much like the medical industry's Hippocrates Oath, wherein physicians pledge to refrain from harm. Individuals seeking to add to Aerok's digital architecture must understand the gravity and importance of the responsibility. Living in the technological society means that a connection to the network is a necessity that almost borders on a physiological need. Despite the decentralization of a clear authority body, this does not mean that there is no governance. All citizens must be aware of the nature of the tools they're handling and the digital world in which they inhabit.
Thank you. Now moving on to the innovative ideas. So far our policies and ideologies have been wide-reaching, aiming to address issues at a systemic level within Aerok. Given this, we needed an innovative idea that was both scalable and flexible for a dynamic society and able to work alongside the policies and ideologies. Our innovative idea is a digital platform operated via blockchain technology. On this platform, scalable services will be accessible to all Aerok citizens through a unique identity passport. Firstly, I want to touch on what blockchain is and why it is the backbone to our idea. Blockchain is a way of storing data. What makes it unique is its way data is stored. It is not held by a single entity, like a bank may store data, but is stored within a network. It can be therefore classified as decentralized or not belonging to a single central entity. Given this quality, recorded activity or data such as payment transactions or votes can be verified by a network or people by a network of people, as everyone in the network has access to the data and must come to a consensus before it is verified and therefore accepted onto the blockchain. Once the action is complete, it is so for attached to the chain. This makes the sharing of information using blockchain immutable, meaning it cannot be tampered with, secure, and as mentioned, decentralized. Blockchain initiatives are already emerging in today's governments, so we make the assumption that by 2071, the technology is ubiquitous and secure. Given this, the features of the Aerok's United People's Decentralized Repository digital platform will be able to undertake sensitive services such as voting, payments, storing valuable data, and delegating digital identification. So the vote function aims to set a new standard of voting, enhancing democratic decision-making within societies at three main levels: local, state, and national. Ballots can be lodged by citizens via digital government committees, which are also voted on and organized through the platform. In addition, votes can be delegated from individuals to one another through the secure network. We hope in full functionality, people will be able to cast votes at least 3 times a week at varying government levels and issues, increasing overall civilian participation and democratic decision-making. The cryptocurrencies or digital tokens are central to the creation of alternative incentives for citizens, specifically those who are unemployed, to undertake their own value-adding activities within the community. While it is unlikely that the employment rates will be able to reach the present-day low, such as 5% standards, we aim to facilitate a paradigm shift in traditional working culture by rewarding individuals for their self-organized enterprise of labor in varying categories such as social impact, social inclusivity events, welfare, innovative ideas, and environmental action. These digital coins can be categorized as stable coins with a twist, whereas in the backing of the currency is supported by the value of impact created by the community, resembling that of a social currency. The acquired coins can be used on the marketplace to purchase goods and services. This incentive system for value creation aims at encouraging impactful, self-conducted work outside traditional profession. We believe this will also address the wider challenges of self-fulfillment. The community engagement platform resembles that of a social media platform with the true aim of bringing connectivity to community members at a local, state, and national level. The main feature is for members to engage with one another and use the community board feature to organize community startups, grassroots organizations, and collective initiatives based on interest. Successful or impactful projects can also be rewarded with digital tokens. The community engagement function also aims to bridge the social rifts, being a universal platform for organizing and encouraging virtual and in-person community activities. These are just some of the main functions of the digital platform. Its intention is to be flexible, user-friendly, and a place for informational and value exchange for the good of Aerok. Thank you very much for listening, and do you have any questions?
Thank you, Team Economics. We'll be taking Q&A after the discussion section. For now, it's time for missing semester. If you guys are ready, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Let me share my screen. Can you see the screen? Is the screen visible?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Okay, very nice. So hello, nice to meet you. So we are Team Missing Semester, and our motto is filling gaps and making sensations. So let me just give you a brief introduction to Aerok once again. So Aerok has 4 very striking qualities that is very significant throughout this debate. So it is first an AI society where it is leading a high-tech AI industry. It distributes basic income. It selects the working age population through the title exam. And this title exam acts as a discriminatory solution for dividing elites and non-elites. So before we start on, we want to envision a good society through our core values. So we have dictated 7 core values that we want to mention throughout this debate. And the core values are perseverance, empowerment, innovation, humanity, open-mindedness, integrity, and intellectual curiosity. So let me just introduce you to a few of our core values. So firstly, humanity. So we believe that humanity is our first and last resort, and AI is our tool. And something like intellectual curiosity, we constantly strive for knowledge, and we take an interdisciplinary approach when obtaining knowledge. And also innovation, obviously, as we try new things and venture beyond our boundaries. And we have our objectives. So for humans and AIs, for us humans to further better ourselves and our society, we recognize the differences between AIs and humans and make use of the excellence of AI in certain fields. And for society, we want to tackle the problem of monopolization and also tackle the problem of distribution of wealth and power. And we also focus on the people. And we believe that only by fostering and performing ownership and responsibility within society and making use of decision-making rights can a community come together. And we also want to rebalance the government budget. Also, we want to structure the current policy of Aerok, where currently it is performing a broad and universal welfare program, but we want to redirection this policy such that it specifically focus on people that really need support. We want to create a social safety net so that people can freely challenge themselves and take risks. And we also want to take a different approach on title and jobs. So let me first introduce you to the overview of the problems that Aerok is facing. So we have deduced 5 major problems that Aerok is facing. So firstly, the first problem, and probably the most significant problem, is that Aerok is a title and basic income-oriented society. So when this policy was first implemented, they have enjoyed a comfortable life and prospering economy. However, this policy in the long run, it has created numerous side effects, such as sharp decrease in jobs. The title exam has been introduced to deal with the excessive demand for AI-related jobs, and basic income is to provide basic needs to largely unemployed class. So this basic income creates the second problem, which is the malformed distribution of the national budget. So if you look at this figure above, which is our data refinement of the government budget, you can see that a major portion, 65% of the total government budget goes into the basic income, which is a very phenomenal and very exceptional amount. And due to the large non-working class, most of the national budget currently in Aerok is focused on welfare and less on other sectors. The third problem is the lack of student relief plans. So this ties in directly with the current title exam. So title exam is like a standardized test that high school students take, in short. And since all of the power is concentrated in fields dominated by title passers, and since title can only be taken once, discussion on student relief plans have been scarce. And this student relief plans also connect to the job monopolization, where for title passers, 96% of the title passers are currently employed in an AI-related job, whereas title failures, 57% are unemployed, and the rest are focusing on less paying jobs such as service or entertainment. And thus there is an inevitable monopolization of high demand jobs, which is the AI in Aerok by title passers. And finally, this creates an impoverished society where members of the elite class support each other in various ways to maintain their socioeconomic status. So what does this problem have? What is the impact on the society? So the government management, so this leads to poor distribution of the budget, and the title exam creates a high dropout rate. So you can see that up until age 15, almost 100% of the students are attending school, which is the mandatory education period. However, so between age 16 and 18 is the age where students take the title exam, the bottom 50% who knows their destiny, that they are not going to succeed in the title, they just drop out. And by 16, only about less than 20% of the students are attending school. And by 18, 8% of students are attending school. And this also creates a high student stress level and also job monopolization. And also, this also creates sort of a crave for self-realization. So we want to fix this problem. And how can we do it? So we propose some solutions and proposal that we want to take on. So our first policy tackles on basic income. So the motivation of the solution is the excessive basic income that depress the people's willingness to work. And as the current national budget is overly concentrated in welfare, we want to redistribute the current proportion on basic income to other sectors such that there can be more fulfillment of society. So you can see that the basic income is actually too much. So even if one doesn't work, only by basic income, a one-person household can sustain their life, and a two-person household, they get 400K of basic income, which is way greater than the minimum cost of living, which is 280K. So we want to redistribute the government budget as like the 71.3% welfare to a lesser proportion by implementing and decreasing the amount of basic income. So age above 18, we want to distribute in a 150K, and age 18 or below, we want to provide income based on their current grade level, such that we can also provide some motivation to study and also to alleviate the financial stress that basic income is currently taking on the government budget. And we want to provide a scholarship bonus for high school graduation or the consecutive year of work of study that doesn't exceed 50K. The next major sector that we want to target in our policy is the industrial part. And in Aerok, title is the only evaluation method available for selecting student workforce, and students are only allowed to apply once. So this creates a very extreme dependence and very risky dependence on all students, whether they pass the test or not, and they go through a painful school life. So for students who are actually studying for the title, only 5% of the students are going to pass, so they need to constantly work through this harsh competition. And if like the bottom 50%, I think I'm reiterating this again, if the bottom 50% knows that they cannot work on this title exam, they just drop out. So officially, by the documentation provided by the committee, the workforce that the Aerok officially needs is 5% of this entire population at the most. And this leads to three major problems: job monopolization, creation of a small privileged class of people, and there exists a lot of craving for self-realization through labor, but there isn't a supply for it. So what we want to do is we want to first increase financial support for startups. And especially we want to provide an extra advantage for startups that focus on these three categories. Firstly, not AI based. Secondly, startups that are mainly consisted of students that are non-title passers. And thirdly, projects that stem out from the capstone projects, which we're going to introduce you to later. Also, we want to provide some supplement employments. So we want to just provide jobs that people can do, and we want to provide a 5% jobs, lottery-based jobs for the entire population that expires in a year. And we also provide a 5% skill-based jobs. And we want to provide this lottery-based job by the longer one attends school, the higher the probability in the lottery. And we also want to focus on education. So education is the key for success. And we believe that students need to find and foster students' potential. However, the current courses that the schools undertake only focus on title, as title is the one and only way for success. And this gives nothing but pressure to the students. And so we want to not only decrease the competition, we also want to provide a way that students can communicate and collaborate with their peers and actually work on solving societal problems. And we provide a solution called the Capstone Design Project. I think a few of us may be familiar with the Capstone Design Project. This would allow students to actively communicate. And also we want to provide for students that receive high scores in this Capstone Design Projects, offer jobs for mentoring the students, providing a positive cycle. And due to the chance of employment through the Capstone program, the mentors are given the potential to further improve the Capstone program itself. And so we want to provide like Capstones projects for like each grade levels. So like for the 8th grade, for the 10th grade and beyond. And we want to make this incremental as well. Firstly, in the 8th grade, which is the level 1 Capstone project that is mandatory, we want to first start with solving problems related to school. And for the 10th grade projects, we want to have seminars and ideation and actually do field tests, seeing that whether to check whether we can actually solve this societal problem. And we want to make this a positive cycle so that top 1% at level 2 can be access to mentoring. And also we want to like do like a pre-capstone project, such as like to foster design thinking abilities and also to have some teamwork skills. Also, we want to see, looking at the government budget, we can see that the investment in the education sector overall is very small. So we want to find a way to increase the quality of education through the educational donation programs or the lifelong learning, as there is a serious problem with the monopolization of jobs by title passers. We want to provide an implementation of lifelong learning, such as the preparatory class for title or the hobby class. And we want to provide a way for reducing social gap by establishing like an annual public conference or having like a social connection event such that people who normally do not communicate, the social groups of elite and non-elite who do not communicate, can use this as a place for communication and discussion of national policies. And lastly, we want to focus on how to make people more professional. We can see that in the current hierarchy, there is a socio-economic hierarchy within Aerok, where 4.8% of the population monopolize AI-related jobs, and the other 95.2% suffer social deprivation. So we want to provide like an hackathon events within schools for cooperation among students. And we want to implement specific exams for certain specialized jobs as a substitution for title, like students willing to get professional job fields like doctors or maybe lawyers that may persist in Aerok must take this exam to be eligible for college entrance, and additional courses may be offered at school or online. So this is the overview of our solution, and we believe that a lot of positive effects were going to occur due to our solution, such as a paradigm shift and a working population, the unemployed population to become a working and participating part of Aerok. Through the lifelong learning, we believe that we can cultivate positive attitude and self-realization. And through the fiscal adjustment of the welfare and basic income, we believe that we can improve Aerok people's self-realization and also provide support for the policies that we are suggesting. So our proposed solution and our access to our current plans and our solution is live in this landing website. It's deployed live. And we have described like some solutions, like graphs describing our problems. And we also provide some solution implementation. And our team name is Missing Semester, as our team goal is to fill in for the missing semester of people of Aerok. Lastly, we want to introduce the solution to solve the problem. So we propose like platforms that support our proposal. So the lifelong learning platform. We believe that this platform can be used to explore new fields, participate in activities, and nurture passion And for the Capstone project platform, we believe that this platform can create a full cycle of understanding and learning, and also create and foster and nurture critical thinking and presentation ability. And 3D hackathons, well, probably we're very familiar with hackathons, but we can be very mentored and showcase our.
Sorry for interrupting, but you have 30 seconds to conclude. You went
Yes.
over time. Thank you.
And so our products are designed with hope that our products leads to a good society. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Missing Semester and Economics, for presenting your creative solutions and ideas to resolve the current challenges of education, economics, and AI. Now, we will have a discussion section where both the teams will be given 10 minutes to prepare for the Q&A session that will follow. We would kindly request all the participants to join the session again at least 2 minutes before the start of the Q&A session. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to Pioneers 2071, questioning the next 50 years. The current scenario focuses on challenges that education, economics, and AI face. We have had two amazing teams present their proposals on how to effectively tackle and resolve these issues faced by Aerok. During the Q&A session, I would encourage all the participants to actively take part and ask critical questions, but bear in mind to maintain the decorum and mutual respect. Reminding again to the teams to kindly write Q in the chat so that I can give you the right to speak. For the professors, you can unmute yourself anytime and ask the question to the designated team. Before opening the floor for questions from the participants and the professor, I would like to begin the Q&A session formally by an opening question to Team Missing Semester. So you guys state in Policy 4 that you will create 10% new jobs, 5% jobs are skill-based, and 5% are lottery-based. So could you elaborate on that? What are these jobs and how will you create them?
Okay. Firstly, thank you for your question. So yes, we have stated that we want to create 5% new jobs, 10% new jobs through where 5% is lottery-based and 5% is skill-based. And so what we want to do is for the 5%, the lottery-based jobs, we want to create jobs where it requires human interaction, such as like things that, like this is just for employment. So like counseling or mentoring or just talking with people. I think what lacks in Aerok is the communication within people and between people. So we want to have lottery-based jobs do like this. And for the skill-based jobs, we want to incorporate the skill-based jobs with the lifelong learning that we are doing, such that the skill-based job, the people selected from the skill-based jobs, the new jobs, can be acting as the mentors and the teachers for the lifelong learning or mentors for hackathon. So we were thinking about what jobs cannot AIs replace, and we think that mentoring and a very intimate contact with people are still areas that AIs have difficulties replacing. So we wanted our jobs to focus on this area. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Moving on to Team Economics, you kind of reformed the title by the Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence and break it into 7. Could you explain how do you intend to create jobs for the new 7 categories that you highlighted, and also assign jobs for people based on the need of the government and Aerok?
So yeah, the new education system is essentially diversified from a more STEM-focused education, which was the title. The way in which we intend to expand jobs already in the STEM field is through the policy of reducing working hours. So we hope by essentially redistributing working hours, so people who do take a STEM field will have availability to more jobs, as just the number of working hours are redistributed. In terms of the other alternative paths, which are represented in Gardner's 7 areas of knowledge, this is a more long-term view that we have as Aerok, and we believe will like develop over time, in that the Institute for International Humanities will essentially help foster and cultivate new industries. So essentially, we want to like diversify Aerok from rather than just having a country focused on AI research and also humanities. And we aim to do that through that policy by bringing in international talent. So that's another way. So that's a more long-term view. But yeah, that's my answer to the question.
Thank you for your answer. I have a question for Team Missing Semester. So you guys kind of redistribute the basic income, right? So the basic income that now people get is below the minimum that you need for standard of living. So you guys try to increase the jobs by the lottery based and scale based, right? But that's only 10%. So how can other people sustain if you don't give jobs to like everyone and the basic income is below the threshold that keeps you alive?
Okay, so also thank you for your questions. So we also realized that the current redistribution of the basic income may not satisfy the basic needs that the people need. So what we want to do is we are also going to provide some modifiers for the current basic income. So I think this was not directly dictated in the presentation, but in our proposal, we stated that like based on the current, if the person who's receiving the basic income is currently studying or currently working, then they would have a very high modifier for the basic income. However, if they are not doing anything, then obviously they will not have a great modifier. So then we encourage them to marry, because if they marry, then they are going to have a they were going to satisfy the minimum needs.
And adding on to Guhong's response to your question, we looked at the population and the percentage depending on the age, and we also looked at the fertility rate, and we've concluded that most of the 30 or plus aged people in Aerok are currently married or living with someone else, and most of the people have children, and people in the 20s to 30s. If they're currently studying, they can get a surplus in the basic income. So we've tried to for the 20 to 30 people, we try to give them opportunities and an incentive to keep on studying. And for the 30s and above, we want them to either keep on studying or keep on the population pattern, which dictates that most of the people are either married or living with someone else. And if you're living with someone else, you get a basic income that's more than the basic need for survival. So that's why we designed our basic income in that way. Thank you.
Thank you for the elaborate answer. Now I will take questions from the professors and the participants. So
I have a question. I have a first question to Aeronomics. So you mentioned that the blockchain system by government, and I think it sounds very interesting. And I can see that it may increase people's trust on how their private data are used. But I'm not so sure whether it will solve the major problems that Aerok is facing right now, which is lack of jobs or education related problems. And how do you think it relates to such problems?
I think the focus of using blockchain technology is really just, like I mentioned before in the presentation, a means of building trust between government and civilians. It's more of a means to solve the issues and help facilitate the policies rather than be the actual means to the ends, I suppose. Yes. Does anyone else from my team want to add on to that? I'm just going to clarify that just a second.
So the way that we were approaching it was more from a cultural perspective. It was more of a holistic roundabout approach. So in saying that blockchain will be able to increase trust in a more of a around its society. So say for instance, when we have Gardner's theory, he was a developmental psychologist, and when we were looking at the title test, it was more so that it seemed a little bit restrictive. Students could only choose one option that they were interested in. But what happens if students are interested in multiple things, or they have multiple intelligences, which is what Howard Gardner's theory was based on, the several intelligences. So in doing that, it's not so much, our policies are more in a transitory period, not necessarily from one place and then we'll be able to achieve a goal, but it was more so on the roadmap on the way there. So in saying that, we're able to kind of facilitate and manage the boundaries between what is happening now and what's happening in the future, and keeping a foot in both. And by having that holistic community aspect to it, we're able to kind of culture and nurture children in their learning when they're going out into the world, and they're able to facilitate that learning by having different sorts of channels in which they can be encouraged to learn and increase that learning. Thank you.
Would I just be able to, just have a clarification for a question about more specific to blockchain? And what I meant by it's a means rather than an ends. I think one thing that we wanted to try and focus on is a paradigm shift of what working is like, because like I said, it's unlikely that working employment rates will be able to reach that of like unemployment rates will be able to reach that of like 5% as we see, for example, here in Australia. So we need to consider how else we can cultivate people to still work and have some type of reward system. And we thought that reward system could be in the format of digital tokens. So to have a essentially complementary currency to whatever the currency of Aerok is, where people can be rewarded for organizing their own.
Apologies for interrupting, but you guys exhausted your time. So could you sum it up in 30 seconds? Thank you.
Yes. So basically creating an incentive system for people to do their own work, and they can be rewarded. The blockchain, the mentioning of that technology is really just to make sure that that's secure and can be facilitated seamlessly with trust. So people don't feel like that the government or any specific entity is essentially taking advantage to reduce like the chance of like a monopolization pretty much. And that was the end.
Thank you, Jasmine from Economics. Now, do the professors have any question?
I have a question for missing semester. Okay, so you propose financial support for startups. I think main goal is to increase the number of jobs. And again, I guess this should require significant investment from government financially. So do you think this is realistic in terms of current government budget?
Okay, so thank you for your question. So actually, like we've included this proposal as we are also very interested in the startup scene, and we believe that startups can be used to create impact to the society. And we believe that a startup should focus on one goal or solving a problem. And by doing it, like startups are more lean than other like the majority of companies. And we believe that through the supports that is deduced by reducing the basic income. So like we believe that more than 15% of the government budget can be reproportioned to other sectors. And we believe that if like a 3% or a 4% investment to startups would create a significant impact that might solve the current problems that Aerok is facing. So did I answer your question? I don't know if if it was sufficient enough. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Koo Hong Min, you have the floor to answer a question to Economics.
Yes, thank you. Firstly, thank you, Economics, for a wonderful presentation. So I wanted to ask you, like, what kind of incentives are you going to provide to students who are not dropping out? So, like, in our opinion, in our team's opinion, like a problem of Aerok is a lack of motivation for students to study, especially the bottom 50%. So we try to provide an incentive in the basic income that scales by the student's grade level. So I just want to know, like, what kind of perspective you have on this issue.
Economics, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have.
Yep.
Thank you for your question. So again, this was more like a cultural change in which we wanted to bring in more, say for example, one of our policies, we had the idea to bring in more people who were from the community themselves. Say for example, a person who was working in AI but was made redundant because, or a person who was skilled and was made redundant by AI. And they're unemployed now. They will be brought into the school community so that they will be able to kind of mentor and train students alongside the other facilitators. So education is more so what we were trying to build was that in a sort of internal motivation for studying and learning for life in a way that it will be able to be able to inject learning with life, because what we saw with title and with subjects, if a student doesn't see the relevance to their daily life, then they will just see it as another subject to study. So it's not really like a way that we are trying to get students to motivate them, similar to yours. It's different to yours actually with the basic income. It's more cultivating a community surrounding them that allows them to learn and see that learning is part of life, just not so different from life. So it's a very large cultural change on a wide scale. But again, as we were mentioning, the way that we interpreted the case study was that this is during a transitory time. It began, there was a reformation only in 2070, I think it was 2070, and then it's just been a year. So they're still in a transitory mode from moving from one place to another. So in that regard, it's not something that's going to be quick. It's more so a cultural change that begins with the individual themselves, and it begins with the culture that surrounds them and the environment, to make it safer for them to learn. Yeah, thank you for your question. Did anyone from my team wanted to add anything?
I'll quickly add.
Oh, so you go, Brendan.
I'll quickly add that our policy of reforming the title into the 7 intelligences allows people to actually have an education instead of competing for a title. So they're more incentivized because they like a certain topic that doesn't necessarily have to be AI research. It could be more focused on the arts, humanities, or something like music. So because they are more interested in that, they should, by their own human nature, be incentivized to study that particular area of study, and as it won't be forced on just an AI or research-based area.
And just to very quickly add on that,
Thank you for your answers. You guys exhausted the time of 3 minutes. So I'll be taking the next question from TA Economics and Brendan.
In your reading solution in regards to policy 8 on the 6 semi-mandatory social events, whilst we agree it would improve the social gap, we're just wondering how does that change the status quo? I.e., there is still no incentive for the elites to communicate with others outside their social group on a day-to-day level.
Missing semester, would you like to entertain the question? And Brendan, could you repeat the question again and be a bit more concise? Thank you.
So on policy 8, we're just wondering how does the status quo change, because we don't see a initiative on how elites will communicate outside of their social group on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. So I'll just begin, and other people from our team can add on to my answer. So what we want to first provide is an opportunity for people, and like a forced opportunity somewhat, but an opportunity where people from different social groups can communicate. As currently in Aerok, we believe that there is no way whatsoever for elites and non-elites to communicate, and this creates a barrier between of communication and misunderstandings. So we believe that by like providing like different kind of community events, we believe that this is a stepping stone for a more active communication between people.
And we also agree that to your opinion that the elites will probably not step out of their group because there's no reason for them to do so. And we don't think forcing them to step out is a good idea. We don't think forcing them to step out every day is a good idea. So that's why we're creating 6 events, social connection events, and those events are mostly festivals where people can enjoy and have fun. We're not going to talk about politics or anything like that. And we believe that by hosting those events, people can start to know each other and understand the innate differences between them. And in conclusion, we hope that we can foster a sense of community and unity between those people in Aerok.
Thank you for the answer. Does anyone from the professors have a question?
I have one question.
Yes, Professor, go ahead.
Yeah, I think both teams agree that title or its alternative should evaluate more aspects rather than just academic performance, right? I agree with the ideas, but I'm wondering whether such changes can actually relieve the stress of students because students might feel that they should be perfect in more aspects, right? So moreover, if title or its alternatives still play an important role in the society, how can students be evaluated in a fair way, right? I thought some new aspects are hard to be evaluated like in a fair way. So do you have any, this question is for both teams. Do you have any ideas about this?
Does anyone want to answer first?
So let me just try to answer your question. So I think you've touched a very important point in the society. So we believe that by providing alternate opportunities, we believe that as what the professor has mentioned, there can be more stress as students need to study more, and because they might need to feel perfect. However, what our team wanted to provide was a new opportunity, as currently in this system, they have only one chance. And this one chance, if they do not get it, then they are doomed forever. So this creates like a heavy stress and a massive dropout rate of 92% at the end of school, as only title only selects 5% each year. And only 5% people who take title cannot retake this exam again, according to what the MCs has shared before. So we believe that we create new opportunities, new ways that students can venture out. And by this, although this can create a side effect of wanting perfection, we believe that our proposals can alleviate stress, as they don't need to feel that this is the one way. There are other ways that they can venture out to be successful. But very thankful for your question.
I'll just very quickly answer on behalf of Economics, and if anyone else wants to jump out after. I think one of the main sources of stress, which is being like recognized, is that when students come to the end of their education career, they feel the need to, or they feel subjugated to needing to find a job. And for 95% of the population, that is not a reality. So we hope by diversifying from a very young age the opportunities within the education system, students will be able to, first of all, take those subjects, hopefully cultivate an interest within them, and realize at the very end there are, I suppose, there'll be 2 funnels. One of them is which is again a long-term view, the Humanities Institute, which is another sector that's not as STEM focused. So hopefully that will create jobs and be a point for bringing about different areas of different industries. And then the second is the token incentive for them to self-cultivate and in a similar way start up with either grassroots or startups of their own, addressing their areas of interest. And the way in which they can be rewarded is through a system of tokens. So they aren't just doing things for the sake of doing them, but they are doing them in hopes for a certain type of impact, and they can also be rewarded for that in the value of coins, which can be used to purchase goods or services.
Thank you for your answer. Oh, do you want to add? Sorry.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, you have time. Go.
Okay. So I just wanted to jump in from a more psychological perspective, perhaps. The idea of perfectionism is kind of tied to someone's self-esteem. And self-esteem is sort of, it's not only just society, it's not just media, it's the culture as well, as our team of economics is always talking about, is because the definition of success is that you need to get a job, you need to be part of the 5% elite. But if we don't change the underlying definition of what success means, then students will always measure themselves against that ruler, or they're always trying to reach a particular horizon. So it also, it comes down to an entire, the way that a child is nurtured in growing up and how they develop from a young age. So with teachers, which is our policy as well, so that teachers are not just teachers by trade, they're also educators from the community as well. So they can come in from different places, they can show children different perspectives of what it means to be successful, because successful doesn't always mean that you need to have a job. And especially with AI, it's very particular. AI and research in Aerok, it's very AI technology research. That means you're successful. But people who don't have a job, they start to think about other things like self-actualization, self-fulfillment, and kind of
for your perspective, Elisa.
Thank you.
From economics. Okay. Do we have any questions from the professors?
Okay, can I have one?
Yes, sir.
So this is mainly for the missing semesters team, but I think there's an aspect that relates to economics as well. So you're for the creation of jobs, you mentioned mentoring for the capstone projects for those who are younger than you, I guess. So this is, do you think this is enough? Like, I mean, can we get enough sense of purpose by, you're essentially studying to teach what you studied? If your purpose of doing the capstone project is to get a job to mentor other students in the same course, do you think that's sufficient? Or in broader terms, is learning good enough for learning itself? Is it an inherently good purpose in life, or do you need to go out and do something, I don't want to say useful, but where do you find the meaning of the further education? And this also, I think, applies to economics, where you focus on lifelong learning in some sense. Although I get the feeling that you are aiming for more sort of larger ideological change in what learning means and what it's good for. But at the policy level, if you just create jobs to be teacher of what you just studied, do you think it will work?
Okay, thank you for your question. So actually, I was inspired by this project, by the capstone project and the hackathon, as I was actually taking classes in school, and they also teach you about capstone projects. And there's like this, I also took a class called HCI. And what this projects all focus on is to discover a new problem within society and providing a way to solve this problem. And each of these problems that the students are suggesting are unique and different. So we believe that the mentors can find meaning as they are creating differences in society through mentoring and capstone projects. So our capstone projects, it is to find problems within society and providing a way to solve them. And we believe that the mentors can empathize with the problems and also have a sense of meaning as they are solving new problems. So we believe that this can provide meaning. So
Okay,
and other
suppose someone finds a sort of new solution to problems in society. How will they implement it? By creating more jobs?
So yeah.
Adding on to the first question that Professor Yushin asked to our team. First of all, we all agree that all people are different. They have inner differences. They also have physical differences. However, we are working on a policy at a government level. So we shouldn't direct people on a certain job. We should give them opportunities and we should let them choose. So our main purpose is giving people more opportunities for them to foster or take. And the top 1% of the capstone project can choose to um, choose to become a mentor or not become a mentor. It's their choice. For people who become mentors, they can either find meaning by teaching students, or working with students to find solutions for social problems. And for other people, for other mentors, they can use their experience as mentors as a stepping stone to further go on in society and find their path, which is why we also implemented our lifelong learning system. We think that humans should always constantly keep on learning and improving themselves. And in that process, people can divert their path. They could become mathematicians, but in 10 years, they could become teachers or politicians, or maybe even professors, or maybe even, I don't know, firefighters. And our job is to provide teachers or provide members of the Aerok society with enough opportunities for them to pick and choose from and grow as a citizen of Aerok. And that is the reason why we implemented capstone projects and implemented jobs for mentoring. And also we all of our policies are linked together for everyone.
Thank you for the reply. Do you want to sum it up in 30 seconds?
Yes. So we basically want everyone to have enough opportunities from birth to death to constantly learn and improve as a human being in Aerok, and that's one of our core values also. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Economics, would you like to add anything on this from the professor's question?
Yes, thank you for the question, Professor. While we do believe that we also want to cultivate lifelong learning, we think that this is an ideological shift that will probably take the course over a long period of time. In the meantime, rather than just hoping for people to like rapidly adopt a love for learning, we think that there needs to be a more sense of responsibility granted to civilians. So we intend to do that with the high frequency voting, and we believe that this will within local, state, and national levels give civilians and members of community a sense of responsibility that they need to be a part of the decision making within their respected areas. And so the objective of the high frequency voting is to, one, increase democratic decision making and just increase overall civilian participation, and that may lead to learning about certain issues. So environmental policy might occur at a national level, and those votes can be casted at a local level. For example, an individual might cast a vote up for putting a stop sign at the local school. But the idea of increasing participation, accountability, and responsibility within a society, we think is like that first step of just increasing awareness and engagement. And we think this also has some knock-on effects in community building and bridging those rifts between the different classes. So does anyone else want to continue from that?
Yeah, so yeah, just continuing from that, I think in terms of the students and the teachers in learning, what we it's something similar to what Missing Semester had, which was the capstone projects, except these capstone projects are within the lesson themselves. So say for instance, if you're having an astronomy lesson, so if the children can use virtual reality or augmented reality in order to experience their learning. So rather than having something that is so intellectual, you're decreasing the distance between intellectual isolation and practical application. And by doing that, you're having a more experiential idea or notion of learning in saying that. So that might kind of aid in the intrinsic way of learning, in that it's not just something that's applicable to school, but it's also applicable to life, which kind of goes back into our other policies and our values as well.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. Economics, I have a question for you. Like during the debate, I like how you approached the problem and went to the idea of how to take like Aerok towards where we wanted to go. But I think you guys mentioned that this is the means to an end, right? But I don't see any transitional policies that you should implement to meet the end. So you guys prepare well for the end. That what do you want to do? How the people of Aerok are self-content and then having jobs and those kind of stuff. But I don't see any transitional policies. So could you highlight on that? What are the transitional policies that you have right now?
Is this specific to, just to clarify the question, like for example, employment, or like we have this essential like ideological place where we want to try and get to, but you're asking what are we doing now to essentially get there?
Yeah, exactly. More focused on employment, not the sense of purpose of people.
Right. I think the main policies we've implemented to address that is, one of them is policy 5, which is structural unemployment, and the problem solvers initiative, which is essentially to re-educate the people who are unemployed to prepare them to join the workforce. And where the opening of the workforce is through the policy number 9, reduction of the standard work week, which follows the model of a 20-hour work week. So there's currently a small elite of the 5% who are working. We're going to assume, we made this assumption, a regular standard work week. So possibly between 8 to 12 hours a day. We believe that for reasons of mental health, and some of our background research has suggested that reduced working week actually increases productivity, and overworking can be an issue of like reducing productivity of workers. We think essentially we want to redistribute those working hours, so that individual of the 5% who is working, say, a full week would now only work 20 hours, and the rest of those hours would be distributed to those who aren't. So that's where those two policies kind of coincide together. In addition with promoting interpersonal industries, and making a pivot towards other industries related to the humanities. And so that is policy 7 and policy 8 kind of coming together and working cohesively, in that we'll have people working in corporations that are traditionally human, such as teachers, and therapists. And then policy 8 is to supplement that with bringing in experts from overseas, similar to that of what's happening in Dubai, for example. They onboard foreign experts essentially. So that was our line of thinking. And
just to add on to that, it's also the reduction of the standard hour work week is leveraging the additional ease that was gained via the technological advancements. So AI is allowing us to have more ease, so why not take use of that? So we were thinking maybe we can start with an implementation in some small areas, and then start expanding once we have feedback from citizens and civilians, and then ensuring that there's detailed documentation for each workforce, so that it's sort of like a rolling over a way of doing work, in that someone can come in, someone picks up, makes some notes, so that it's easier for the next person to pick up. And so the standard work week, we were thinking each industry it's different for each industry. So every industry has their own discretion of how to organize.
Thank you for the
work.
answer, Team Economics. Now we're coming towards the end of the Q&A session. Do any of the professors have any concluding questions that you want to ask? If not, we'll move on to the conclusions. So any questions from their professors? No? Okay, we're on time. So Team Missing Semester, you have the floor for the conclusion. It's 5 minutes and your time starts now.
Okay, we'll share our. So, for our closing remarks, our core values, as mentioned before, are intellectual curiosity, integrity, open-mindedness, perseverance, empowerment, innovation, and humanity. And our objective is to focus on human AI interaction, society, the people, government budgets, and on policies. Our society currently faces 5 major problems: title and basic income orientation, malformed distribution of the national budget, lack of student relief plans, job monopolizations, and a nepotist society. However, we do not believe that attacking a certain member of or group of our society or forcing a radical policy is the answer. Instead, we strongly believe that harmony within Aerok can only be achievable through constant civilian participation in governmental affairs and policies, and through long and arduous but very necessary interchange between the citizens regardless of their socioeconomic status. In essence, we wish to create a common ground within our society. To achieve this, we plan to create policies to reduce risk, confusion, and conflicts, which is why we adopted the following solutions of fiscal adjustment, lifelong learning, capstone projects, no work, no pay policies, expediting exchange policies, and occupation creation policies. For students, we offer capstone, pre-capstone, and mentoring jobs, and donation of education. For adults, we implemented lifelong learning, and we offer a chance to be a tutor and to share one's talent and knowledge. For professional jobs, we implement hackathon, and we implemented specific exams for certain specialized jobs. And for basic income, we decreased the basic income and implemented differential rates of basic income, and we enforced an award system on basic income. To reduce social gap, we hope we are going to hold 6 semi-mandatory social connection events, and we established an annual public conference for policymaking where members of the elite and public can come together. And finally, for the industrial part, we increased financial support for startups, and we supplemented employment by creating additional jobs. So we hope that our set of ideologies and policies were enough to persuade the judges and other participants. We hope that in the future, when these problems actually appear on our society, we can remember our policies and efficiently act to solve those problems. It has been a big pleasure to participate in this debate with Team Economics and the judges. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Missing Semester. Now moving on to Team Economics.
History does not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. As previously mentioned, the issue that faces not just Aerok, but civilians today is not only technological, but existential. The more we utilize technology as a means to augment and optimize our reality, the more we are redefining what our humanity is. This is especially so in a networked society where the exertion of power is subtle. The most minute changes can be explosive, and the speed of connection is exponential. One of the underlying issues for Aerok is not just the fact that technology is removing jobs, but is the cultural definition and social construct of what it means to be successful itself. We can implement as many policies and innovative ideas as we like, but if we do not consider cultural changes and that underlies the digital change, or defines what success is for ourselves, it will continue to result in a competitive race to the finish, even though speed does not guarantee safety. We must reach the root and not merely address the symptoms. In essence, we are emphasizing that the use of human network to mitigate and coexist with the inherent risk of a digital network. It has thus become a management of national culture, something that is equally as invisible yet equally powerful. Both must have enough structure in order to keep society predictably operational, yet at the same time be dynamic enough to encourage cooperation and adopt resilience to attacks. Peace and balance is not a goal that can be achieved, but is a constant vision to be vigilantly and digitally managed. there's a fine line between humanity and technology that only 50 years into the future, but not today. These forces will constantly conflict and will not coexist. On a journey to a more harmonious and symbiotic relationship, there'll be vulnerabilities and surprises that are inherent in a complex system for moving parts. Interestingly, we must achieve human goals through technological means, must therefore be holistic in our adoption of systems within systems, and see that there is humanity within technology, a technology without humanity. Despite mentioning transitions between old and new, the transition is not just a new world, and not only a struggle between this or that, as management of this and that, is a blending of both, and our policies reflect it through our ideology as seen in our proposal. Our policies on education, namely the adjustment of title to 7 intelligences, the intra and inter-educational institution, and experience learning via the VR and AR sessions, show the international ideology. Our policies on economy, the blockchain technology, the structural employment and problem solutions initiative, and the restructuring of the universal basic income show the empowering of humanity. Also, promoting the human and interpersonal AI industries, government spending, and attracting innovators in humanities, as well as a reduction of the standard work week, continue that empowering of humanity. Finally, our policies on AI, on regulating bodies to enforce digital laws, on coalition of the members representing the employees, and the signing of the digital manifesto and Hephaestus oath, show that technology must be beneficial to humanity. Through our policies and ideology, we show that a cultural change is needed in Aerok to achieve something that is balanced both for technology and the needs of the human nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Economics and Missing Semester, for the wonderful conclusion and your innovative ideas to resolve the current agenda. We now come to an end of the debate, and now I officially close the first debate of Education, Economics, and AI. I would like to thank all of the participants for participating. Hope you guys learned, enjoyed, and hopefully best of luck to the guys or gals who participate in the final. And I would like to thank the professors for being contributing to the debate with their generous and really valuable questions. Thank you guys, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.